And Mark, Iran is certainly shaken by the death of Nasrallah, and mixed views because Hezbollah is part of their government, controls a lot of the country, but there was a lot of resentment also in some of the other areas of Lebanon against Nasrallah, and certainly Iran is shaken by it because the Hezbollah was their insurance policy.
Well, that's right. Iran saw Hezbollah, think of it almost as a forward deployed base or as an aircraft carrier battle group, sitting on the border with Israel. And it was really as a deterrent for an Israeli military strike against the Iranian nuclear facilities. And right now, that aircraft carrier battle group is sinking. So Iran has a choice right now. Do they want to, escalate in some sense to retaliate, try to save Hezbollah in that fashion? Or will they kind of push for a diplomatic solution and really have Hezbollah live to fight another day? It is very notable that, we've seen reporting that Israel has asked the United States through our own channels to tell Iran, not to do anything. And also there was this strike yesterday by the Israeli Air Force in Yemen. A strike that was certainly in retaliation for the Houthis firing ballistic missiles at Israel, but also a clear message to Iran. Remember, the Israelis put out on social media videos of refueling capabilities. That's a long-range capacity. That's a message to Iran as well. So Iran is certainly reeling. It's still unsure what they're going to do. They do, however, seem to be in a state of paralysis, and perhaps they're just allowing Hezbollah and the Lebanese fight just to the last dead Lebanese, rather than Iran kind of jumping into the fray.
And in Lebanon, as I was saying, Iran is, of course, shaken by this. In Lebanon, there's mixed feelings because Hezbollah has been controlling them militarily, and they're in the parliament, they're elected members, and they've also provided food and aid to people after the last war. But there are lots of parts of Lebanon that do not support Hezbollah. Certainly, Hezbollah has been guilty of killing, hundreds and hundreds of Americans as well. So you've heard the very moderate public comments from the president, from the secretary, even though they feel that they should have been warned.
Well, look, I worked counterterrorism for many years. Up until 9/11, Hezbollah was the terrorist organization that had killed more Americans than any other group. There are CIA officers, diplomats, 241 American servicemen and women as well. But don't forget, Hezbollah was also responsible for the deaths of thousands of Syrians, thousands of Lebanese. And so you do see in many parts of the Arab world, particularly the Sunni Arab world, rejoicing at Nasrallah's death. And so, there is some hope, and you always try to find opportunity that perhaps Lebanon can get back on its feet now because the Israelis are taking care of business against Hezbollah for their own interests. But also perhaps the Lebanese themselves can kind of rid themselves of this cancer. Nasrallah was very unpopular in Lebanon over the last several years, whether it was responsibility for the death of former Prime Minister Hariri, the port explosion, the rampant corruption, and of course the Hezbollah entry into the Syrian civil war, which led to the death again of thousands of other Sunni Arabs. A final point, Andrea. Really, there's quiet from Sunni Arab allies, such as the Saudis and the Emiratis. I think at the end of the day, they are thinking this might be a very positive development as well.
And to that point, thank you, Mark. And joining us now is Richard Haass, President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations. Could the death of Nasrallah reshape the region? It certainly has weakened Iran, and we have yet to see what kind of Iranian response there will be. But if Lebanon could take hold of its own country again, after its prime minister, as Hariri was, as you point out, President Hariri was killed by Hezbollah.
You'd have to be a wild optimist to think the Middle East will be reshaped as a result of anything. Look, this is, I think, lots of positive developments here, I would argue. But this, to use a baseball analogy, this might be the second or third inning. We've got to see how the game plays out. But no, it's not going to reshape the region. You still have all the dynamics between Israelis and Palestinians, all the dynamics between Iran and the Sunni states, internal instability, or either the potential for it or the reality of it. Plus, Lebanon, quite honestly, is a plurality or majority Shia country. The state institutions are unbelievably weak. So it's going to be a weak state with or without Hezbollah in its midst.
And Richard, President Biden was asked about the possibility of an Israeli ground invasion. Take a look at what he said today.
The fact that Israel may be now launching a limited operation into Lebanon, are you aware of that? Are you comfortable with their plans?
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now.
So there's this real disconnect. At this point, they didn't know about the administration did not know about the pagers. They didn't know about the assassination of Hania in Tehran. They've been blindsided so many times by Israel. What is the relationship like?
I think there's two separate issues here, Andrea. One, Israel clearly prefers asking for forgiveness rather than permission. And you could make the case that this relationship is not sufficiently reciprocal. If you look at what's happened over the last year in Gaza in particular, Israel essentially rejected most American advice or entreaties. So that's a legitimate area where I think the United States and Israel need to have something of a heart-to-heart about how this relationship ought to function. Where I disagree with the president is I don't think calls for a ceasefire now make a whole lot of sense. They're not going to happen, first of all. And I never like it when the United States calls for things that it can't deliver. But also, I think Israel has a lot of legitimacy on its side in taking on Hezbollah. We can debate, how it should be done militarily, but I think from the air, with covert operations, with the ground dimension, makes sense. No country should have to live with the sort of threat that Hezbollah poses against Israel. So I don't quite understand why the administration is coming down so hard on in favor of a ceasefire on that front in the Middle East.